taking control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere. Watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot.
Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at spacedoutradio.com, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Game on! Game on! Game on!
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
The password is...
Alright.
Okay, seriously, what's with the points?
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
Seriously, Dave? Really?
Chloe. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Captain, take your seat on my left. It's time for takeoff.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, start, 2, 1, boost ignition, and liftoff.
Just to be there with you, and I still trip over my feet, and my heart still skips a beat. I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride wherever you are on this fine planet we call Earth on this Friday night, March 3rd, Saturday, March 4th. If you're on the East Coast, we are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North, as we are here 7 days a week. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy, is the man behind our music. Bumblefoot rocks us in and out of every show as he is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. You can also check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And of course, our website is SpacedOutRadio.com. And if you go to Patreon.com, we have some really cool offers for you, our listeners, there as well. Make sure you check those out today. If you want to take part in this show, we don't take phone calls. You'll have to sign into one of the chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I will get to your questions in there as well. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And it's really cool. We got some awesome swag for you. It's our opportunity to give back to you, our valued listener. We also have a brand new news section called The Encounter that deals with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. You can check out my latest blog there as well. It's Science versus Opinion, and that changes every week. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out a SOR Sightlines report. Our researcher Mike Schmidt is ready to find out what's going on. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on our brand new affiliate as of last night, WQEE 99, the key to Spaced Out Radio's family, way down in Newnan, Georgia. Thanks for giving us your nights to share with us on Spaced Out Radio. We really appreciate it. And if you're a fan of this show, do me a favor, head on over to Facebook, give WQEE 99 the key a Facebook page like, just like you did with us. We would appreciate that. We're also on Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world, and on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. The first Friday of the month is our Keith Andrews night on Spaced Out Radio. Keith, as you may know, is our resident ET expert. He brings with him the ET experience with over 50 years of contact. He's had the good, he's had the bad, and he's taken them both. And there we have Keith's Facts of Life. Yes, I'm making a little bit of fun with that right now, but the main thing is this is a serious side to Keith. He wouldn't wish it on anybody. He doesn't even wish it on himself. But this is a life he has been given with contact from the benevolent and malevolent species, and it's not fun. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes he can't get through it. Sometimes he cries. Sometimes he has a lot of fun with it. We welcome in our Keith Andrews to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Keith, how you doing?
Not bad at all there, Dave. Thanks so much for having me, and welcome to the entire listening audience, especially your newest edition there.
Well, we're pretty happy to be on WQEE 99 FM down in Newnan. It's our first true terrestrial radio station that we are on, and we thank them so much for being with us. You know, last night our listeners really jumped up and stepped up to the forefront, gave their Facebook page a ton of likes last night, and we hope that continues as well, and we hope to gain some new fans there as well, and they'll get to know you. So you got a brand new bunch of listeners you're talking to tonight, my friend.
Yeah, which is always... It always creates some interesting questions.
Absolutely.
The one thing I would like to remind people of, old listeners know this one already, but for the new listeners, we absolutely encourage the questions in the chat room. But for pity's sakes, please mark them all in all capitals so they're easier to find.
Absolutely. And that's the way that we got to do it. We just have to do it that way. And just a reminder to our listeners, we do not take phone calls during this time, but what we do is take your questions. Make sure you put them in capital letters. I am having a makeshift studio tonight because in my area, there's literally one highway in and one highway out. It's 2 lanes, and there was a major accident on the highway. Knocked out all my power, and about an hour and 15 minutes ago, my power came back on. And then, as I was about to send out my first tweet of the night, my power went off again. Lost power, had to pack up the entire computer system, race over to a good friend of this show's, Lana's house. And Lana is going to be joining us behind the scenes on Spaced Out Radio here. She probably doesn't know that, but she's also going to be helping us set up the Spaced Out Radio Paracon. And she's like, well, come on over. Use our internet, and that's what we did. So I'm literally having to sit in a strange place here. So because of that, I'm literally running off of one computer tonight. Usually I have 3 screens going, I have 2 computers going, but tonight I'm struggling. So if you're in the SOR Space Travelers Club, make sure someone there copies and pastes your questions and puts it over to the Spreaker chat. Spreaker chat room, I can get to you fine. Twitter, I'm going to be battling here tonight, so make sure if you're at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter that you are literally, patient with me tonight. Revolution Radio, I have no chance of seeing your questions tonight in the chat room. I wholeheartedly apologize. You know how much I enjoy communicating with everybody during this show, because one thing that makes this show a lot of fun is the audience interaction with everything. So please bear with me tonight, and I will do my best. It's once again, we're trying hard here. This is the beauty of having our radio show broadcasts online and now on terrestrial, is we don't need that regular radio studio. We can pretty much put a studio absolutely anywhere. So we're lucky enough to scramble, get this show going for you tonight, because we have 130,000+ people who listen to this show on a nightly basis. Hey, we can't disappoint, Keith. We got to make the show. Some way, somehow, the show must always go on.
Well, it can be a challenge. I mean, now, correct me if I'm wrong there, Dave, but you said you yourself are in Spreaker?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because I'm actually in both today. I got the computer rearranged on my end, but I am directly in Facebook itself, so I'll keep an extra eye out there, which will be a little easier on that end for some people.
Well, I appreciate that. And our resident preacher, Eric Markham, is keeping an eye on things too. So we will be just fine for tonight. Keith, it's already month number 2 of 2017. It's been a pretty quick year so far, because it seems like just the other day we had you back on talking aliens and contact. How you been doing?
Well, the downside is about a week ago, for the first time in over 10 years, closer to just over 15 years, I actually ended up getting the flu. And so that took me about 24 hours to break, which most people seem to be taking out by a month for it, which gives you an idea how my healing goes. But other than that, everything's been running rather well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to hear, that your cold only lasted 24 hours. Man, I got this cough earlier a few months ago where it was literally like, thank goodness for a mute button. And, you had to watch out, because doing this show, all of a sudden your voice would start getting that crackly sound. And that's never any fun when that happens. So
well, yeah.
You're pretty lucky. You're pretty lucky.
Well, it's it is actually a drawback in a lot of ways, because much as I don't get ill, when I do, there's nothing that can work on it. That's where the real drawback to it comes. But on the flip side of that, it makes it so much easier when dealing with so many different types of people, because I don't tend to get what they're carrying.
Mm. Well, that's because you're immune to everything, buddy. You're immune to everything.
Pretty much.
Keith, since we have a brand new listenership down in Noonan, Georgia, and, we're gaining listeners on a nightly basis here, we haven't done this in a while with you, but I would absolutely love it if you took some time to explain to our new audience who you are and why in your life you have had so much ET contact.
Well, who I am is, I'd like to say it was a mystery, but the reality of it is this. When I was born, I was born on a military base during the Vietnam War. And we have to realize that first and foremost, people that figure Canadians didn't go to the Vietnam War didn't talk to the Canadians. But growing up on the base, I ended up quite literally flatlining on the day I was born. And I ended up meeting the Council of 12. Now, the Council of 12 is a group of different races that quite literally keep an eye on what's going on this planet. not to mention the rest of the area, of the surrounding area. And I was ready to go home. I figured I'd already had enough of this place. And I was told point blank, you still have a job to do. You can't go home. Well, the journey began the day I was born. I went through an awful lot of really negative issues, a lot of trauma. Ended up dealing with the my labs. And for the people, for the listeners that don't know what those are, that is the military laboratories, the super soldier programs, that sort of thing. Now, people are undoubtedly going to ask how I can prove it. Well, I grew up on a military base. You find the answers, because I'll be hanged if I can. Finding the proof just doesn't happen. It started off with me dealing with some pretty negative entities, and progressed from there to running into, to literally having a reptilian race literally saved my life. The reptilians, as I grew up to know them, are called Srizazian. They're the 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptiles. Very honorable, very powerful individuals, non-combative, but they are human allies. And I went from there, from the normal route, if you will, right into now where I work very much as a liaison with them and with multiple other races. I was actually doing a list the other day, and it turns out, I forget where I put the list, but it turns out I've actually got over 50 races that I personally have dealt with. As I told one researcher, one day I'm going to have to start researching this stuff instead of living it. Because proving it, I can give you all sorts of cultural information on them, different interactions. For me, it's become an issue of trying to fit on this planet doesn't work that well, because I don't see the world the same way as other people do. But what I've taken to doing is working with the off-worlders and humans. Now, let's be clear. Most people talk about aliens. I split them into two groups. Off-worlders, meaning they grew up or they originated off this planet. And the ancient races, which are the races, the non-humans, that evolved on this planet. Because humans are not the only race that is on this planet. They just happen to be the dominant surface race. And what I've come to understand is much as people, much as humans have a lot going for them, and humans are a fantastic race. Off-worlders, the thing they've got going is they've got better toys. They are not really any different than people. If they were more, there are some that are more spiritually advanced, but what I came to understand was if they really were that spiritually more advanced on the whole, then frankly there wouldn't be 3 wars going on off-world. Just for that, from that standpoint, if you've got a decent telescope, anybody can look at the sun or look at the moon and see activity going on that does not fit with normal astronomical activities. So, I've been physically on, in multiple underground facilities on this planet. I've been off-world. I've been on the big ships. And we, when we're talking about the different races, not all races speak standard language. They don't speak common language. And, like some of the races that I've dealt with are so disconnected from humanity that they just don't understand them. But on the whole, the whole issue is mankind has already left the planet. So what I end up helping the off-worlders with is understanding why humans do what they do and trying to help the off-worlders understand that, yes, humans are erratic. they are impulsive, they are curious, but given the right guidance, much like giving a 2-year-old the right guidance, they are a valuable asset to the consortium. Now, the Galactic Consortium is the group that governs this area. And before we get into any of it, let's just understand that no, there isn't a race out there that is adamant on wiping out the planet, on conquering it, on screwing up the political system. If they wanted to do any of the above, well, conquering the planet would be done overnight. And let's face it, mankind's screwing up the political system well enough on its own. The other thing that I came to understand is that the reason that off-worlders and the ancient races alike do not turn around and they do not clean up the mess that man is making, because man literally keeps remaking the mess instead of learning. So much like trying to train a kid to clean their room, you don't go in and clean the planet up. Show the people how to solve the problem.
Question, Keith, quick question coming in, because we do like to interrupt with our audience participation. Claudia is asking, and you know when Claudia gets started, she's going to be asking about 30 to 40 questions tonight. So we're starting off early, Miss Claudia. Thank you so much. You know I love you and love your questions, so we're going to fire this right up. She's asking, in my dreams that I had for a week straight, I had a race that had brown robes and hoods on, but I could not see their faces. But they gave me downloads for a whole week. Do you know who they were?
I got a pretty good idea. The one question, and this means we have to watch for an answer, because there's a couple of races that fit that description, but two things. One is, could you actually see their eyes? And two, what was the gist of the downloads? Because my suspicion is they were quite literally they're sort of a go-between the Watchers and the human race. The Watchers Watchers are usually in black robes. The brown ones are the people that are usually trying to help the humans understand that they're going down a real sour path that needs to be corrected.
Are they guardians, or are they like watchers?
Guides would be more to the point. The best way to call it would be a liaison between the Watchers and the... Yeah. Okay, Claudia, she's in Facebook. She said it's mostly scientific information and why we're here. Okay. And yeah, that's the liaison, the intermediary between the Watchers and the human race. The reason they would pick Claudia is because, quite frankly, Claudia, give yourself a pat on the back. You've got an open mind and you're willing to listen. But that's what they're doing.
Michael McNeil is asking if you ever read Philip Craft's books.
Absolutely not.
Okay, Philip Craft, and I only read the first one, and I have to tell you, if there was ever a doppelganger in what happened, it's myself and Philip Craft. Now, I'm not putting myself in his category because his experiences were much more extreme than mine. This was a gentleman who was the LA Times editor for like 34, 38 years. And after he retired, his wife went away for a weekend, and he got taken by a group called the Verdants. And they basically told him, this happened in around 1989, or maybe in the 90s, pardon me, because it was well before 9/11 when it happened. And they literally took him on a ship for 3 days, answering all of his questions, from the meaning of life to is God existent, to absolutely everything. And they wanted to know, I mean, one of the Verdant women even wanted to have sex with him because they didn't understand human sexuality, and her job in her 20,000-year lifespan was about learning human sexuality. And one of the things that he paralleled with me was the journalism background. He never really believed in any of this stuff. He thought it was all a bunch of, cockamamie type stories. And then he had contact just out of nowhere. And coming from a journalism side, when I read that book, I saw a lot of what was behind his story comparatively to mine, which, in my opinion, was kind of eerily similar, even though we took different paths. So I'm assuming the reason why is there's a lot of journalists out there, and I'll expand on Michael's question here, and I'll ask you this. There's a lot of journalists out there. Some have had experiences, some have not. Is this a subject, Keith, for a lot of people, especially in the in some type of professional background of journalism or science or whatever, that just doesn't want to report the story? Or do you think it's more they're not allowed to report the story?
It depends on which one, but it's sort of a combination. Most of the people that are connected, most of the reporters, if you will, that are connected to governmental agencies are usually forbidden to do anything with it. And many of the so-called reputable newspapers refuse for exactly the same reason. In all fairness, the problem is that when you report it, and I found this even in the UFO community, that when you claim that you've been abducted, or you claim that you've seen close up an off-worlder, you immediately, even amongst many of the people in the UFO community, you're immediately ridiculed and told you're making it up, or that was your imagination. And most people don't want to go through the hassle. When I ran into, I actually had a because of in 2015 when I went out to the Experiencers Speak conference, the first one I'd been out to. 2014. I went out to the Experiencers Speak conference, and because of one of the discussions that was being had, that was one of the presentations being made, I ended up having a PTS attack because of my past. And I actually had people from that conference claim that I was faking it to get attention. Now, anybody that has had an experience, and especially if it's a negative one or one that's a bit disconcerting, nobody wants to be ridiculed, and most people, including the reporters, will not say anything about it, or they'll paint it as an imagination, or they'll really put a tank on it, pointing to the probability that it was something else, so that they don't have to deal, presumably, with the potential ridicule.
And that ridicule that ridicule is a little bit dangerous, because I think that's something that none of us actually, Keith, want to go through. And if you're getting it by your own peers, and you're getting it by your own people whom you respect as their professional backgrounds, that isn't very comfortable for anybody.
Well, no, and of course the reality is, quite frankly, if it had not been for Travis Walton first, and then the Starborn crew, the Debbie and Audrey and Maude, had they not actually phoned me directly and told me, look, come out to the event, frankly, I'd have quit going. Because, the reality is, this is a life that I've ended up with that has played absolute havoc right from family all the way to so-called friends. And it's not something when you start talking to the reporters, and don't get me wrong, I respect reporters in that they have to ask the difficult questions that may have nothing to do with their own opinion or their own belief in it. They end up basically having to ask questions, sort of playing the devil's advocate in a lot of cases. Much like you do on occasion, you'll sit there and go, look, Keith, I'm just going to play the devil's advocate and ask this question. I love the question here. Gail in SOR is asking, Keith, who encourages you or gives you support when people give you a hard time? Do the off-worlders help you? Well, the answer is yes, the off-worlders do. I've got one friend locally who gives me all the support I could possibly want. Of course, the funny part there is he's a paranoid schizophrenic. But, he's medicated. He understands what's going on. And other than that, in all fairness, I have a few people that I will talk to, but most, because of the way my mind works, don't understand what I'm looking at, and there's not a lot they can do with it. So they basically, the best way I can put it is when I run into that problem, quite often I'll disconnect from everybody because it's the only way I can reorganize my head. I woke up the other day with and I forget who, but somebody was talking about getting a download. You should have seen the download I got handled. And the thing is that reporters have a real difficult job. Okay. But they've got to be careful because when a reporter is trying to get information or a researcher is trying to get information, first rule of thumb, you've got to go at it from the perspective that at the very least, whoever you're talking to may quite literally, they may believe or they may feel that it is a reality. Whether or not it is irrelevant at the start. But to come at somebody you're asking questions of as though they're faking it or as though they're just making it up to get attention is going to skew your report, your research or your interview really badly in a hurry.
KJ has a question, and KJ is partying right now in Florida with the R. Keith Andrews party that we're never invited to. Literally.
Which is going to be never a bad time until we figure out how to get down there.
Well, you know what, Keith? One of these months, we're going to just have to surprise show up and do the show from her patio. Because I'm getting a little upset that every time you are on the air, KJ has a little house party going on, and they crank up Spaced Out Radio to listen to you. And yet you and I are never invited. That hurts my feelings.
You do realize you're going to get a response out of her on that one, eh?
Oh, probably, and I'm okay with that. I could deal with that. KJ is wondering, Keith, do you think people interested in off-worlders listens to shows like Spaced Out Radio, socialize with people interested, and increases people's chance of having an encounter with an off-worlder?
Does it increase it? Not really. But does it make them more aware of, does it make the querying or the people that are talking about it more aware of the indicators or the markers that will tell them they've had an encounter or they're having one? The answer there would be yes. Okay, but it doesn't seem to amplify the odds of being picked up. It just seems to make it easier for them to recognize what they're going through. And I'll tell you, it certainly makes it easier for them to cope. It's support like that is invaluable for the people that are talking, given that you can find somebody that will talk to you as, as an equal and go, this is what I'm dealing with.
Absolutely. But, if you are around people, and I'm a firm believer in this, Keith, if you're around people who are connected, it's like all of a sudden becoming that blue light special at Kmart, where you become a beacon. Because I know personally, if I'm around people who are connected, immediately, without me even knowing, my game is on. All of a sudden, I'm picking up energy, I'm picking up intuition, I'm picking up paranormal stuff. Next thing you know, you look up into the sky, boom, there's a UFO flying over, and sometimes it actually does happen that way. But when you are with connected people who know they are connected, it's amazing what the energy can do to bring that contact together.
And that I absolutely agree. When you're around people that are connected, as you will, that are aware of what's going on, you absolutely will pick up the information faster. That's what I was referring to about it makes them easier to recognize it. Because it is. You put more than one person in a room, and it amplifies the view. I mean, it's like hooking batteries together. You get a better layout, you get a better output. Right. And therefore, it does make it far easier. And of course, for the off-worlders, it's certainly easier to find the people that believe, but that can backfire too, as in they can go, well, those people are already aware we're here, which makes it difficult, so we'll go to the ones that aren't. And this is why I say it doesn't really amplify the odds of being picked up, but it certainly amplifies the odds of them recognizing it.
So how do people connect then? Yeah, but how do people connect then, Keith? How do they understand how to create that connection if they are around people who are also connected? Maybe it's a person who's never had that experience before and is yearning for that experience.
Well, that's where it gets to be a little difficult. Okay. Because the problem there is it depends on what the race is as to who they're looking for. As to what type of people they're looking for. As has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt in many of the researchers, quite often it's done in bloodline, as in family. One family gets taken, and one member of the family gets taken, and it carries on. One of the best things that people can do when they're striving to have that encounter, to see something a little bit abnormal, there's a couple of things that people need to be aware of. First, whatever you do, get it out of your head that I want to have an experience, but I don't care what the experience is. That is virtually guaranteed to create a problem. Because some of the races up there you don't want to deal with. But get that sorted around. And understand that when you're focusing on meeting them, right, focus on the idea of what can we do to help with the merger, with with bringing the human race on the whole up to speed with the consortium. Because these people, the ones that are actually trying to pick people up for the purpose of handing information, are the ones that are aiming at helping people. If you're trying to get a hold of this, so that if you're trying to draw an encounter so you can just say, oh, I now believe because I've seen it, it's not going to work as well as you might hope. Okay, that's where the catch is. Okay. So, it's an issue of making certain that not only are you focused on making the contact for that purpose, but make certain that in your day-to-day life, you're working towards helping the people around you. And that does not mean spending money you don't have or putting yourself in complicated situations. It means when it's safe, when you're not damaging or hurting yourself, it's not a lot of work to hold the door open for somebody. It doesn't take a lot of work to just simply say hi to a stranger when they're sitting and looking a little off. It's those kinds of people that the off-worlders that are trying to get the message across to humans, are trying to help guide the humans on this evolutionary journey. It's those types of thought lines that they're watching for.
That's heavy. Let's get to another question from Claudia. Claudia is asking, are we receiving information like a main computer, holographically made, that we can tap into for the past, present, or future when we ask questions or receiving downloads?
It's kind of a strange way to put it, Claudia, but essentially correct. The connection, the computer you're referring to is a neural net. And that is something that's got nothing to do with the off-worlders. It has to do with the peoples of this planet. And yes, when you tap into the neural net, you can look at past events, you can look at present events. Future events are more of an extrapolation. Okay, as in looking at the past and trying to figure out where the future is going to unfold, because the future is not written. Now, where the off-worlders come in, when they're downloading, they're adding information to that net more often than not to direct host. Okay, so from that side, it is an awful lot of information that everybody has access to, but because humans have been taught, quite frankly, backwards, that seeing is believing, that's where they run into problems. Okay. I love Eric's question here in Spreaker. No, not Eric's. It's actually from Gail, but Eric's pushed it through. She goes, I do not want an off-worlder anywhere near me. Will they respect that? Is there anything I can do to make sure they understand I'm off limits? Well, the best way I can put that, Gail, is as long as you keep that in your mind, what I want to call the benevolent off-worlders will certainly respect it. Okay, if they end up picking you up because they didn't realize, they didn't get the message or they didn't understand it, and they come to understand it after they got you, they will put you back as quick as possible, and that'll be the last you ever hear from them. But understand, that's the benevolent ones and the neutrals. If you end up with an off-worlder that is not, that is malevolent, sadly, you can plead all you want. They're not going to pay attention. It's kind of like if you're dealing with a person, if they're a nice person or if they're a neutral person, if you ask them to leave you alone, they'll leave you alone. If they're a bully, they ain't going to pay attention to you.
Let's get to a Claudia question here. She is asking, since love is the most powerful energy known to man, when love is present, is that an energy the off-worlders are attracted to and will share lots of information with those who love?
Well, the answer there, Claudia, is yes, it will attract them because it does show up much brighter. Much more. It doesn't so much show up brighter as it shows up more steady. Not so much for English, steadier. But will they try and give information? The answer is yes. The problem is that there are varying degrees of love. And it's the kind of universal, of unconditional love that they look for. There are many people that are very nice people, that are genuinely caring people, but the reason they are focused on trying to meet off-worlders is for their own purpose or for their own verification, if you will. And that isn't the type of love that these guys look for. They look for the type of people that genuinely are already trying to help other people. Okay, but yes, love absolutely will catch their attention. And before it scrolls past here, Mike, the day, how old I was when I had my first realization that I had this ability was quite literally the day I was born. But yeah, where it comes to the whole issue of the emotions, love gives off a different vibration. It is a different color and shows up on the scanners a whole lot, like a lot differently than many of the other emotions.
Do they believe then in love from the heart, or is it more a soulful kind of love?
It's definitively more of a soulful, because love from the heart is more often than not focused on one race or on one group of people, if you will. The ones that are truly trying to assist humans in evolving, they're looking for the ones that have a love of life, a love of planet. Planet being across the board, whether it's plants, animals, people. They look for the people that are the least prejudicial, the least prejudiced people, because it's those people that will try and help everybody.
Question from Gail. Yeah, okay, continue. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Done?
Carry on.
Okay, question from Gail. I do not want an off-worlder anywhere near me. Will they respect that? Is there anything I can do to make sure they understand I'm off limits?
Well, we actually talked about that a little earlier, Dave, but the answer is this. For people that are just joining the listening audience, if you have it in your mind that you really don't want to deal with them, the benevolent and most of the neutral races will respect that. If they don't, if they miss the message, if you will, and figure out after they got you that you really don't want to be there, they will put you back, and that'll be the last you ever hear of them. And they will send word out to the rest that, look, this person does not want to deal with us. They're not ready to. Leave them alone. However, the malevolent races are just plain going to ignore your request, if not target it, because of the way they are. But, I mean, that's like asking a bully to leave you alone. Bullies won't listen either.
You've kind of answered this question. This one comes from Mike. How old were you when you first realized that you had this ability? And you already kind of answered that, but I'm going to modify this question if you don't mind. When did you realize that they were coming to you specifically for contact?
That was shortly after, I guess I'd have been about 5.5 years old after they pulled me out of the MyLab situation and saved my life. And it was shortly thereafter that they started coming around, and it started off with just the Shazosians coming around, the 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilians coming around, to really talk about, to find out what I knew, to figure out how to deal with it. How they could put it to use, because the Council of 12 already knew of me and had already told them, look, this one's got work to do. They, as near as I can figure, and I really didn't get told this part, but I'm sort of extrapolating. After I met the Council of 12, they clearly were keeping an eye on what I was up to. And of course, after the Shazosians stepped in and quite frankly saved my life, it was shortly thereafter that I realized they were coming to me, and they weren't abducting me so much as saying, will you come with us? We'll make sure you come home.
Keith, do you regret it? Do you regret, and I know I've asked you this before on the air, but do you regret the amount of contact that you have? Because I know you've said on this show before, you wouldn't wish what you've had on your worst enemy.
And I really wouldn't. Do I regret regret it? Some of it, I certainly did not appreciate. Some of it was absolutely terrifying, but I don't know if I can say that I regret it, because I've got some phenomenal friends that literally will go to the ends of the universe to back me up. And there's not many people on this planet that you can say will go that far. You know, I mean, you know, when I talk about having friends in high places, some of my friends are, well, quite frankly, literally out of this world. So, I mean, it's sort of a trade-off. But the journey to get to where I am today, if I'd have been given a choice, no, quite frankly, I wouldn't have done it. I don't know what my life would have looked like. But if I'd had the option of going, do you want to go through all this trauma? You know, it would have been a very clear, no, I just don't want anything to do with that side of it. So, you know, I can certainly understand people going, I don't want anybody around me. You know, I don't want an off-world around me at all. You know,
yeah,
but,
absolutely. Go ahead.
You know, I have the same problem with many humans. I mean, like, you know, would you leave me alone?
Don't we all have that problem with humans sometimes? But at what point were you able then to decipher the good from the bad? Because if this is starting at 5 years old for you, it's hard at 5 years old to comprehend anything that is good or bad or right or wrong, without anybody showing you the difference, compared to having some sort of extraterrestrial output in that regard.
Well, oddly enough, I actually could tell the difference between the good ones and the bad ones from the day I was born. But then you got to understand, I was born with 15 senses. Okay, most people are born with 5 standard senses and a rudimentary 6. I came online with 15. I could feel who was right, who was good, and who was bad from the day I was born. Okay, so that part of it, I have no idea what it's like not to do that. You know, they're not, it's actually not a question of sorting it out from my standpoint, any more than for somebody that can see color normally has any problem separating green and yellow. You know, you just do it.
From Claudia once again, since off-worlders can manifest their thoughts, can they create their reality instantaneously?
Very few of them. Very few. They have the same limitations that most humans do. Oddly enough, one of the few races that was ever able to manifest their reality instantaneously was humans. Back when when we were walking around in the Lemurian Empire, we had the capacity to physically manifest our heart's desire right then. You wanted a house, it was there. You wanted a change of clothing, your clothing changed. If you wanted to be able to fly, off you went. There was nothing you couldn't do. There was no war. There was no peace. There was no peace. There was no war. There wasn't any greed. There was no illness. We had universal peace on this planet, and it was humans that figured out how to do it. The off-worlders, quite frankly, still have to manifest, have to build what they want. They don't have that creative capacity.
Why don't they have that capacity?
Well, because it requires a certain defiance of logic to be able to do it. You know, you've got to be able to actually look at a situation and realize that it's there and it exists, whether it makes sense or not. And most off-worlders don't have the capacity to do that. That's one of the reasons why they're drawn to the human race, because the human race has that ability. Okay, you know, that's one of the biggest kickers in the whole situation. This is why I say off-worlders are very much like people. They just happen to have better toys. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, but when you have people, and let's take this in a different direction for a second, when you have people are skeptical of all the information that you were putting out there that the off-worlders have given you, how do you combat that without getting into a fiery argument or getting into some sort of pissing match, so to speak, because somebody doesn't want to believe you or feels you're a master of disinformation, or for the mainstream, Keith, wouldn't believe a lick of what you were saying?
Well, and that's a fair question. The ones that are absolutely what you're saying is false and what have you, sorry, I'm not as eloquent as some people would like me to be, and I will tell them what they can do with themselves. For the ones that are questioning it in a legitimate, in a respectful fashion, most of the time, logic works. Okay, I can give enough information to people to sort it out, right, and to at least help them accept the possibility of it. Can I prove it? Not a prayer. Okay, the only way I'm going to be able to prove it, and I have challenged people all my life, you want proof of what I went through when I was a kid? You get the records from the military. Okay, I grew up on a military base. Good luck getting the records. I spent 20 years with a shrink, and nobody has the information, apparently, of what was said. I know what I went through. I know what the shrink told me, but nobody seems to know where the information was taken. So for the skeptical people, I have no qualms about it. I will quite readily sit down and spend as much time as I can get away with trying to help them understand the possibilities and the rationality of where they may be making a miscalculation. For the ones that just automatically want to believe everything you say, well, let's face it, there's people that'll do that too. And, I don't know, realistically, trying to help them understand that there are things that don't add up. People like that are just as complicated to deal with as the ones that go, no, you're just a complete fraud, right? And like I said, when I was back in 2014, when I had the problem that was triggered by the presentation that was done, I was accused of being a fraud, and I just about didn't go back to another event because of it. If there's one thing I refuse to do to people, it's I'm not going to lie to you to make you feel better. I may not tell you what you want to hear, but the reality is, as one person put it, I asked them how I deal with all this information. What am I supposed to do? Because I've had staggering numbers of people corroborate what I've said, over the years. And the way it was put to me was, there's no way you're going to get physical evidence that you can prove to people, so you have to deal with circumstantial. And in a court of law, that's what the lawyers will use to determine if somebody's guilty or not guilty.
Keith, I got to cut you off right there. We're going to go to our first break of the night. Our Keith Andrews, the ET Connection. Coming up with hour number 2, Keith Goes the Distance, the first Friday of every month. We'll be back right after this.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio Live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Good to have you back. on the Mighty SOR for this Friday night. How y'all doing? Want to remind you that tomorrow night and Sunday, I will leave the cabin tonight after the show. My bag is packed, ready to throw it over my shoulder, head off into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi. And I'm going to find a good Wi-Fi signal so I can tune into Spaced Out Weekend with Elizabeth Anglin and James Tyson Saturday and Sunday night starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time on spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia. We are thankful to be your nighttime show. Night number 2 for us on that network. Thank you so much. Our first big terrestrial one. That's where they host The Walking Dead. It's kind of cool. I got to get down there. WQEE 99, Rock the Key. We're also live in New Orleans on 107.7 FM and over 160 countries around the world on the United Public Radio Network. We're live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Sesquiplicate. Oh, I got tongue-tied. Sesquiplicate is your password. So make sure you use it wisely. Bill sets a password every Monday through Friday night right here in the mighty SOR. If you're a social media junkie like I am, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to communicate with me live during the show, just like John is, and Dennis. You guys are doing a great job right now. And Bobby, you're looking good as well. I don't know what your picture is, but it looks weird. You can also give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on Stitcher, TalkStream Live, and RadioGuide.fm. and Patreon.com. So if you want to check out some really cool features that we have going on right now that you can purchase, go to Patreon.com. Every dollar goes to help out Spaced Out Radio grow. So make sure you get it today. Anyhow, if you want to check out our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. And you know I love my word plethora. Plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. We bring back our Keith Andrews with the ET Connection tonight on the mighty SOR. Keith does this show the first Friday of every month. Keith, how you doing, my friend?
Not bad at all. And thanks again for having me, and welcome to all the new listeners that have dropped in since we started.
Absolutely.
It's always a fun, and I know you have fun trying to figure out how many people you're looking at the same time.
Well, on Spreaker right now, I am 148 messages behind. That's how far behind.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so time-wise, I'm about 21 minutes behind, but that's okay. Let's get to Char's question right now. And Char is asking, Keith, how did you end up meeting all of these different extraterrestrial species?
Well, the Reader's Digest answer would be I was taken to the consortium's flagship and ended up basically in a I guess you'd call it a gala or a military gala where they have multiple races that coordinate or that congregate to try and sort out what they're going to be doing. Now, I mean, this was not where I started. This is where I worked to, right? But most of them I end up meeting when I go in because I get called in to help sort out disputes between the different races where most of the time where humans are concerned, but even with many of the different races that have problems with multiple races in the first place, humans are the most adaptable once humans figure out how to interact. They are a lot more adaptable. In my case, I'm not exactly normal from that perspective, and they've come to understand that I look at every race in the same way. I see them all. Quite frankly, I see every race, every age person I've looked at that I've met. I quite seriously, no disrespect intended to anybody, I see them all as children. And no race is better than the next race. No race is more advanced, more deserving of respect than another race. So I end up being brought in as a balance point, if you will, because I look at things in a very disconnected fashion, without that issue of, it's not a human, therefore they've got to be either trying to kill us or trying to own us. I look at all people the same way. And for me, people literally means, if you're sentient, you're a people. Bear in mind, plants are sentient. So it really has been a process. It just happened to start when I was a lot younger than most.
Let's get to the next question. Lori is asking, do you think the world leaders like the Dalai Lama, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. were influenced by off-worlders?
Absolutely. Do understand they were also influenced by humans and people like Gandhi, and I love the way she's put it. They were influenced, absolutely, and they in turn influenced the off-worlders. They weren't controlled, they were influenced, and she got it absolutely on the money that way. It's a well-known fact, or well accepted fact, that Hitler was in contact with the off-worlders during World War II. What nobody seems to realize is that so was every other major country. Their leaders were also in contact with the off-worlders. But they were absolutely influenced. Which is, by the way, one of the reasons why the planet hasn't blown up entirely.
Exactly. Got a couple questions from Ophidian. He is asking, Keith, he has questions about the blue beings you saw in Maine. So, Dawn, because we showed pictures of Dawn last time you were on, and I'll try and repost those on Twitter as well. And he is asking, I met Travis Walton at a UFO Congress in Arizona a few weeks ago, and does Keith know why Japheth won't talk about the blue beings? Why was this not a major story?
Wait a minute. The person I'm missing is, who is Japheth?
I have no idea. Might have been a typo.
Okay, with that missing piece of information,
Travis,
not a problem.
Travis won't speak about it.
Well, Travis has a lot on his own plate. And, from, knowing Travis myself, my suspicion is very simple. Because of the fact that he doesn't have, I'm only suspecting, but for him, it wasn't as critical an issue, and therefore Travis is a very down-to-earth individual. I mean, he couldn't have picked a better job when he was younger. Being a forester absolutely was a perfect job for him. He is very down-to-earth, a very reserved individual. And anything that's going to throw him into, he's got enough troubles without throwing in this issue of, are these people, are they true Pleiadians, are they not? Without solid fact, without something concrete that he can work with, I suspect very strongly that he's just going to bypass the question. I don't presume to talk for him, but I do know that he is a very quiet individual. And he's not, part of the issue may well be that he doesn't want to bring somebody else into it without them there.
Let's also remember, too, that Travis has his own detractors, because what people believe happened in the movie Fire in the Sky is not what happened to him at all.
Not at all.
I mean, Hollywood has a great way of taking a true story and mixing it up to their advantage.
Well, the thing that I find fascinating, I was actually approached by a producer in Hollywood to tell my story. And they pitched it to me that they wanted a real story. They wanted to know the truth. But the contract they said that they sent me literally said in it that they wanted to be able to fabricate and lie and change the facts as they saw fit without me having anything to do about it. In a nutshell, I told them what they could do with the contract. And they said, but look at the fame, look at the recognition you'll get. And I looked at them and I said, you want to make up a story, use somebody else's face. I'm not having you lie. Because what Travis went through was because Hollywood butchered the reality of it. Now, in all fairness, Travis didn't have the understanding of what he went through to be able to clarify it as well as he needed to. I mean, they really did blindside him in an awful lot of ways.
They did, but, at that point, when somebody throws a bunch of money at you, and if you need the money, and I'm not saying that's why Travis did it, but I'm sure he wasn't expecting the butchering to happen the way it did. I mean, it took him 15 years to finally say, I don't like the way that ended. That's not the truth. He had a gag order for a long time.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you. Even with what he did tell them, and in all fairness, I don't know what he told them, but I absolutely agree that he would not be expecting that kind of a butcher job.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Let's get to Gail's question. She's asking, Keith, have you written down your life experience for a book?
Well, the answer is I've got a lot of the information down. Much of it is still on cassette. I am in the process of doing that. But the issue of finding an artist is proving to be an absolute disaster. Because I need a realistic artist. I need somebody that can draw so that you can actually see. And I guess the best way to put it is a portrait artist that is actually able to draw properly. And thus far, I have had absolutely no luck in finding an artist. Even going to the Arts and Technology Center here in Kelowna, where they actually train artists, I have not had one response for an artist. But do I have a lot of the information on paper? The answer is yes. In all fairness, I've got a lot of it down, but until just this past year, when I finally got confirmation from my parents that, from my dad, quite literally on his deathbed, that my memories and my past are real, and he apologized at that point for keeping it a secret, I spent most of my life trying to prove I wasn't absolutely out of my mind. So I didn't make as much headway as I should have, but at present it is an ongoing job, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much information I'm sitting on.
Right. Let's get to another question here. This one is from Claudia. Since everything has a spirit, is the spirit bilocating in the quantum theory?
Well, yes and no. It's not creating the... Quantum theory is a fledgling science. Now, the energy that we are talking about, does it interact, does it respond inside that reality, that aspect of reality or that intensity of reality? The answer is yes. But it's not creating, and I'm sort of extrapolating about what she's asking. But it is, it's not creating the quantum aspect, but they do read it. They do interact with it, they do interpret it, but they don't cause it. And they don't create it any more than a person walking in a river creates the water they're walking in. Make sense?
Kind of. I'm a journalist, man, not a scientist. That's why I have Eric Markham.
Yeah.
That's why I have Eric Markham around these parts. Do you feel then, according to Char, that you are a liaison between the ETs whom you have contacted and people here to get the message out?
Absolutely. There is absolutely no question in my heart on that one at all. That is literally what I am trying to do, is help people understand where the ETs are coming from, that the ETs, on the whole, are not an evil bunch of people that are here to disrupt the political world or to control humans or to cage them, and at the same time, I'm trying to help the off-worlders understand that, yes, humans at this stage in evolution are very much like a virus, but they are not an evil race. Very self-centered, very, by off-world standpoint, humans are quite often sociopathic. But my job is to help them understand, help both sides of the board understand what is driving the other members. And it's not just me it's not just me trying to help with the humans and trying to help with the with the off-worlders in the consortium, but it's also trying to help, for instance, the Srazazians dealing with the amoeboids. Because I understand what makes the amoeboids work, I understand what makes the Srazazians work, but those two do not understand each other at all, which makes it entertaining trying to sort it out.
Question.
But am I a liaison? That's literally what I'm here for.
Well, here comes another question from Claudia, and she is asking, who made the crystal skulls? Did it come from off-worlders? Did they leave it here?
Quite frankly, and you're going to love this one, so for those of you that are Trekkies, understand it is not the same race, but the Vulcans made them. Okay. Vulcans are actually on Sol 1, which is a planet inside this sun's photosphere that is home to a living gem-based race. Okay, they are crystal people. And they are the ones that built the crystals. And yes, they are communications devices. The reason for them looking like skulls is because it aligns more effectively with the neural net that the dominant surface race was holding, and it's close enough to the alphas and the crawlers. The other humanoid races. The skull is close enough to work as a transmitter to be able to connect properly. There's one thing, that's one of the few things that I really would like to get my hands on is one of the original crystals. One of the original skulls.
I know there's one at Mount Shasta. To me...
Yeah, I know there's also one out on the east coast of I think it's over on the east coast of the States.
Mount Shasta is closer. And I know James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend has talked to the lady who has it.
Ah.
Yes. I'm thinking road trip, buddy. Us Canadian boys hopping in a vehicle, find a VW van that we can crash in, make a trek to Mount Shasta to find some crystal skull. It's also a very good vodka, too, by the way.
I'll tell you, the best wine I ever tried was at the bottom of the fourth bottle of Black Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff at the first bottle, at the top of the bottle wasn't great, but the stuff at the bottom of the fourth, that was smooth.
Yeah, at that point, nothing really changes. Let's get to a question from Gail. Gail is asking, Keith, do you feel love and affection for the off-worlders? Love is what you were describing. Is that what you have for them?
Well, the answer would be yes, but ironically, no more than I do for the humans. when I mentioned that I don't see any race differently, on the whole, that's very much the case. I am very attached to the whole concept, to the variety of people that I've come to meet and that I've come to know. The off-worlders, and we're talking about a lot of people, a lot of different races. The off-worlders, the ancient races, they are phenomenal people on the whole. And so from that sense, the answer is yes. Do I, by extrapolation, do I have a preference for them? No. But certainly, I do have a definitive opinion. I do have a certain, I guess the best word for it would be love. But it's more like, and this is going to sound awful, shall we say, egocentric on my part, but it's very much like the love you have for a child. Here you have a race that is struggling desperately to get ahead, and they're really screwing things up there on occasion. And we know this because they got 3 wars going on. Obviously, they haven't gotten the message. But they have the one thing that most of the off-world races have that humans don't have is a sense of unity, of racial unity. And humans don't have that yet. They're still fighting over skin color. Or imaginary lines drawn on the ground.
Very true.
And,
Very true. Question from Claudia. When you travel outside Earth with the off-worlders, do they create a protection like a Merkaba or a bubble or dome-like field around you so you can survive out in the universe?
It depends on which. Well, the answer would be yes. More often than not, the ship is more than capable. But for places, for instance, when I go to the Swazian homeworld, they absolutely have to. If I'm going to go outside, and they have taken me outside, but absolutely they have a protective suit for me, or for any human for that matter. Because the atmosphere on that planet, well, it's kind of like walking into a sandblaster. So, you step out for a human to step outside without a protective suit, they're dead. They would be peeled to the bone. You want to go talk to the sea fae, and they have to put a protective suit around you, because not only would you drown, you'd also be crushed. So, they do go out of their way to ensure that I'm protected from the environment, and then it's a case of simply do what I'm told where it comes to the operations and the functionality of the ship. Of the planet. They gave up on the idea of protocol, but I do my best to follow. I'm not exactly, shall we say, good at the protocol thing.
I know. You beat to your own drummer, buddy. You beat to your own drummer. Let's get to another question. This one comes from Aussie Rob. He's living in Tomorrowland down in Australia. Keith, have the alien races you have talked with watched the movies put out by this planet, and what do they think of the entertainment factor of the human mind?
Well, number one, have they watched some of the movies? The answer is definitively yes. The polite way they put it is they're amusing if you're a kid. And from a scientific standpoint, or more to the point, the ones that look at it from a military base, they look at it going, if you really think it's that easy to wipe out races, then peace on Earth should be it should be child's play for you. They quite frankly, they find the whole concept of humans beating an alien race that wants to overcome, that wants to conquer. They find it more of a comedy issue, but they are quite happy where it comes to they find the actual acting side of the movies rather intriguing, that people can pretend they're something they're not and make other people believe it. You know, they find that to be very fascinating and very enjoyable in many cases. Yes.
Sorry, I thought I had my mic on mute there, and I didn't. So I put it on mute. I reverse muted myself, my friend. Live radio at its best. Keith, when you are dealing with the ETs and they are looking at movies such as Fire in the Sky or the movie Alien or Predator, Independence Day 1 and 2, Cowboys versus Aliens, a lot of the movies over the last 25 years have depicted extraterrestrial contact as a very malevolent thing. Has any alien species ever come up to you and say, why are we doing that? Or would you understand the reason why that's truly happening?
Oh, absolutely, I've been asked that. And the basic answer that I give them is because, first and foremost, humans have this need to be superior, to be able to protect themselves. There's an absolute fear amongst the human race in general, and there's other races that have the same problem. But like I tell them, humans use movies to distract themselves from reality for the most part, but the reason that those types of movies work is because humans do not like being the subject of subjugation. So the concept of humans being able to beat an alien invasion helps humans feel a little more comfortable. But when you take a look at the show Aliens, Cowboys versus Aliens, that ironically created quite the stir, because humans have been known in off-world situations or in on-world situations to do absolutely retarded things and win where the aliens didn't figure they could. But we are talking small scale. Like in Cowboys versus Aliens, it was just one small little group. It wasn't an entire race trying to wipe out the planet.
And I understand that, but do they feel like they're almost getting ripped off?
No, because from their standpoint, and there has some of them undoubtedly do, but the social guides, if you will, of the various races quite literally go, well, they're making that up because you haven't shown them, so they're just putting things together. Okay, it's very much along the lines from their standpoint of, if you want, like the proponents for, well, that movie should be more realistic. The normal argument from the off-worlders to the off-worlders is, well, if you don't like the way the movie is being played, you can go down there and teach them. And their usual comment is, well, if I sit there and I go down there on my own, they'll shoot me. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. So you're either going to go down and show them what you're talking about, or let them have their fun. Okay, because the off-worlders also know that the people that are thinking are looking at these movies going, they're movies, they're an entertainment form, they are not necessarily a reality, they're a possibility. But what scares some of them is the reality that humans have a tendency of taking possibilities and making them happen. Okay, but you'll notice that the only way in any of those movies that the humans win is when the humans work together. When the humans give up the separation between color, sexual orientation, society, financial status, when humans put all of that aside and work together, that's the only time they win. Okay, and that is what the off-worlders keep looking at the other, disparagers of it, that's what they look at it and go, that's why we let the humans do it, is because, well, maybe they'll get the message that if they work together. Clearly they know that's necessary. Now, if they just do it, it would actually be beneficial.
Ophidian wants to hear the story of how you met Dawn again.
Okay, well, Dawn, 2015, in 2015, I went to the Experience of Speak program, conference. And while we were there, the rest of the day went fine. You know, the first half of the conference was great. When Travis got up to do his speech, to do his presentation, these four people wandered in. Now, when I was first had them pointed out, I didn't actually see them come into the room, but they got pointed out to me. And I've been talking to people, and a lot of the people that were at the conference had said they deal with off-worlders all the time. And, you know, so had I. I mean, I've been telling people that for years. So when Dawn was first pointed out to me, and the color was mentioned, well, my eyesight doesn't work that well. I mean, I wear glasses. So obviously my eyes aren't as well developed as I'd like. But I went, I don't know who he is, you know, like, who's the blue guy over there? And what blue guy? Right? Because his skin, yes, it was blue, but it really wasn't that poignant at the distance for me. So it was said, well, the one with the white hat. So, okay, well, I don't know, I'll go find out. And when I walked over there, I got about 10 feet from him, and I noticed two things right off the bat. He was talking to Reverend John Polk at the time, and something was being said. I couldn't hear what was being said. It was too much noise. But clearly Don was not he was not impressed. So I come in, and I got about 10 feet away and noticed the color of his skin. But the first thing I noticed about it was, yeah, it was blue, but it was also mobile. The pigmentation wasn't stable. It was fluid. So I walked up to him, and I went, excuse me. Right, I mean, I waited for an appropriate time. I didn't interrupt per se, but I waited for an appropriate time, and I looked at the guy, and I went, excuse me, are you by any chance Pleiadian? And Don looked at me really weird, and he kind of cocked his head to one side, and he goes, yes. And you know how when you're, when somebody's trying to learn a new language, how they force their lips to try and organize the word, right? It was that kind of a definitive effort. So I looked at him, and I changed my tack right away, and I stuck my hand out. I says, well, welcome to the conference. I mean, this is absolutely fantastic. If you want to meet people that either have been off-world or have claimed to be off-world or had an interaction, this conference is certainly the place to be. All of these people are at least desirous of believing. And I says, I suspect you've had more than your fair share of off-world time. And he looked at me and he goes, yes. And so I says, we talked for a bit. And I says, by the way, a number of years back, I ran into another race, a Martokian. Now, I've mentioned Martokians to other people before, and everybody's going, what is a Martokian? Don got visibly excited. I don't mean upset, but very animated, very pleased. It's like, you saw Martokian? What was he doing here? Why was he here? What was he up to? Clearly, he knew what it was. So I talked to him for a little bit, for a little more, and of course, we ended up asking. At the end of it, there was another chap behind that was clearly, well, he was another Pleiadian, but he was clearly a little off kilter. He was not. He was edgy. And Don looks at me, and he goes, and I asked him. I says, your skin, it's not stable. Right, the pigmentation is off. And he goes, yes. And understand, all of his words were very drawn out, like he was struggling to formulate them. And he goes, yes, I'm what is called a shifter. I control my pigmentation to make it blend more readily with people. And he was clearly he was surprised that I had recognized him at all. So, of course, when this other chap asked, when he was starting to feel agitated, Don looks at me and goes, I really must go. And I asked him, I said, well, can we get a picture of you before you leave? And he goes, yes. And, of course, it was, we suggested that we turn around, that we would send him we'd email him a picture, and he goes, no, don't show it. I do not want it. You can show people face-to-face, one-on-one, but do not post it. I said, okay. I said, you have my word. I will not post it until I get verbal confirmation from you personally that it's okay to do so. Okay. And then I shook his hand, and the thing with it was that the pigmentation was not only visibly fluid, you could feel it move. So I shook his hand, and he went to leave. Now, we were in the conference room, and you left the conference room, go through the lobby to get to the outside. Well, he got halfway through the lobby and phased out. He literally teleported. He just, very much like the Star Trek type thing where you just fade out and disappear. And I got, we went back to our room, packed it in for the night. When I come down the next morning, everybody was abuzz about these blue people. And I'm like, well, we got a picture of him. And everybody's like, you got a what? How did you get a picture? I said, we asked. It turned out nobody had thought to get a picture. Nobody had talked to even the people at their own table about seeing these guys. The Audrey and Debbie Hewins, the people that organized the event, had actually dealt with them, and there were a couple other people that had dealt with them and said they had no clue what to do with money. No clue at all. And it turned out that one of the people I was talking to actually saw Don and company arrive. They showed up in the lobby the same way that they disappeared. They faded in. And it was intriguing because we had 22 witnesses I ended up talking to. Even the hotel was getting phone calls from people that weren't attending the conference asking who the blue people in the conference were. Right. So, over the course of the next year, it was absolutely horrendous, the amount of garbage, and a lot of the garbage I went through, Dave. The ridicule I went through because I refused to release the picture because I had told Don I wouldn't. But, the thing that struck me most of all wasn't Don and his friends, right? In all fairness, it was two Pleiadian hybrids, a human and a Nord that were there. But the thing that really drove home the situation to me was the Sunday morning. The conference ended Saturday night. The Sunday morning, they had a Terran reptilian show, as in snakes and lizards. And, there were a number of the staff that threatened to quit. They were threatening to quit the job because there were snakes in the lobby in cages, because they were afraid of the snakes. Now, that told me right there, if you think snakes from Earth are a problem, what do you think is going to happen if off-worlders all of a sudden, a bipedal reptile shows up and starts walking down the street? But for me, it was a phenomenal confirmation when he reacted the way he did with the Martokian, with the knowledge of the Martokian, that was just another one of those aspects that I had the proof right there for me that what I was seeing, what I was going through, that I couldn't prove, it got verified right at that moment that I'm really not losing my mind, but I've got a really, really twisted life. That's, in a nutshell, that's the Reader's Digest version of when I met him.
Thank you again for sharing. Let's get to another question here from our audience because they are moving forward. Trip is asking, how many modes of transportation, ships, rockets, and UFOs are there? How do they communicate with from UFO to UFO? And why haven't any humans stumbled on their communication yet?
Okay, well, how the communication is done is quite... the communication is done, quite frankly, on a cellular base. Between the same race, obviously, it's a lot easier. In the interracial communication, the Greys actually developed a hybridization process that enabled them to grow cultural interpreters, making communications between races possible. So the translation gets done in that fashion. Now, the communication does not require line of sight. This concept that you have to have line of sight for communication lines to be manifested, if you will, is great for radio waves and other similar wavelengths. What they use will cut straight through a solid object and manifest on the other side, making intership communication quite easy. Where humans have the problem is they keep trying to understand how off-worlders do it using human technology. And it doesn't work that way.
Let's get to the next question here. This one comes from Andy. I heard the tall whites like to dress up and go to Las Vegas. Is this true? Now, to defend Andy's question, I have read about this as well, that they used to park their ship at Area 51 and take a bus in. This happened during the 60s and 70s. They apparently liked the Sahara back in the day, which is now no longer there.
What's no longer there?
The Sahara Hotel and Casino.
Oh, okay. For a minute there, I thought you were referring to Area 51 not being there. The answer to the question, though, is yes, they do. The tall whites are the Nords. And they find humans still rather primitive, but very fascinating and kind of fun to watch, not to mention to interact with. It's usually the younger of the Nords that go down, though, because they're the ones that are still very much into into that social aspect and the interaction, if you will. Quite frankly, some of the older Nords are more of a stick in the mud than humans. But yeah, it's very much a case of they will go down. And, the question of do they park down by Area 51 and take a bus down, frankly, there's a number of ways to do it, and that's one of them.
Well, you know what? The one thing I noticed in reading about this experience that has been very public is that apparently they, being the extraterrestrials, do it because they do it to study human in their own nature rather than the abduction. They want to see how humans react. And let's face it, some of the more humanoid type ETs, they like to party as well, to put it blunt like that.
Absolutely.
So why not go and have fun in Sin City?
And let's face it, the Nords, quite frankly, the polite way to put it is they do know how to party. The only problem you have with some of the younger ones is you have to remind them to leave the weapons in the glove box. You know? But you're absolutely right. It is an issue of understanding humans in their natural environment.
It is very interesting indeed. Let's get to another question. This one from Claudia. Have the off-worlders taught you how to become invisible at will? Have they told you how they can cloak themselves?
Well, the answer to that question is, oddly enough, in all fairness, I don't know if they taught me. If they were the ones that taught me, or if it was a case of I just simply knew because of the way I evolved. But I've had multiple reports of people losing track of me while I was standing right in front of them. So, do I have a tendency of fading out? The answer is yes. Oddly enough, that's actually the first time I've ever been asked that. And as for how they do it, it depends on the race. Many of them use a cloaking mechanism to do it. Some have figured out how to modify the air density or their own vibratory rate, so they literally vibrate, as in their cell structure literally moves faster, so you can't see them. You know, the shadow walkers are a prime example of a race that moves faster than the eye can follow. And that's how they literally disappear. I was actually shown by a human how the human ninjas will vanish in front of your eyes. Okay, that was shown to me by a human ages back. But off-worlders have a tendency of fading, of being able to, some of them, of being able to blend. Many of them, the Pleiadians, like Don, frankly, shifted his skin color, so he looked normal, and he just faded into the crowd.
That leads to Dawn's question. Keith, the picture that you took, was Dawn trying to blend, or was he showing you how he could control the color of his skin?
Neither. Dawn was just being Dawn. Once I had identified him, Dawn didn't bother changing his color at all. I mean, it shifted because it does. You know, I mean, it's kind of like humans. Their blood pumps because it does. So he wasn't trying to shift anything. And the one drawback with any still photograph is, I don't care how good your camera is, it will not show the pigmentation moving. But Don was just being Don. That's just the way the picture went.
So he wasn't trying to camouflage himself?
Nope. You know, he was, like I said, prior to that, undoubtedly he was. But because I see in a different, possibly because I see in a different spectrum than many people, I saw right through it. And as a matter of fact, Don made a comment this past year when I was out there that it was, you know, him running into me was the first time he's run into anybody in the last 50 years that could actually see through his, you know, his ability. Mm-hmm. Right. He said, and he told me flat out, he said, it's almost like you didn't even notice that things were different. You just looked at me. You know, you just came up to me as though I was just another person. But he said he'd never run into somebody in the last 50 years of being here that could do that.
Keith, with someone like Don, can you manifest him? Like, could you telepathically communicate with him to see if he could show up at your house? Does it work that way? Because I think for a lot of us who are on the fence trying to figure out whether or not we can believe all of this alien hype, and I'm not just saying your story between you and Dawn, but in general, you know, if he does have these abilities, could he just show up?
Let's be clear. You know, to the best of my knowledge, Dawn is not that level of a telepath, first of all, and he's certainly not a matter relocator in his own right. So, you know, is it technically possible? presumably. Have I done it that way? Certainly not. Because like I said, he does not just simply relocate someplace. Right. And he's got his own agenda, probably his own agenda, but he's got his own responsibilities, his own duties that he's dealing with. Right. And I've always followed the idea of two things. Number one, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. If it were an emergency, certainly contacting people is an idea. But the concept of trying to get somebody just to prove whether it's there or not, I've never been good at anyway, even for people that don't believe that the other side of what I do is real. I've never been good at jumping hoops, so I never bothered. Is it theoretically possible? Certainly. Would I be surprised if Don showed up? Yeah, because I never gave him my address. Of course, if you go with the idea of telepathic connection, he doesn't need my address.
No, I understand. I understand that, and I do get that. But I guess I look at it the same way, Keith, as the way when I had that extraterrestrial at my window. I have put so many of these telepathic messages out to the universe saying, I've actually gone as far as naming him Carl. I don't know why.
Okay.
He just seems like a Carl to me, because he's acting like a Carl. Anyways, so here I am putting all these messages out to Carl, trying to manifest him showing up again. I even invited him on the air the other night when Harvey Kraft was my guest, because Harvey was the guy on the air with me when that situation happened on April 20th, 2015.
Right.
And it just seems like we can pretty much manifest anything. We're told that we can manifest anything as a human. Yet when it comes to trying to manifest another encounter such as that, it just doesn't seem to work. And we literally got about 60 seconds here, my friend. We got about 60, 70 seconds.
The hiccup in that idea is manifesting something physical is one thing. Manifesting something with a sentient capability is a whole different ballgame, because it's not a question of overriding them. You're trying to force a manifestation of somebody that may not want to be forced. It becomes a massive battle of wills, and you've got to understand the transformational reconfiguration of the planet in order to even begin to override that kind of manifest.
I get that, but where is the human? Maybe I'm thinking about this way too humanly here, but damn it, man, I want it to happen again. I do.
I don't doubt that in the slightest.
And to be honest, I'm a little offended. I know that may be weird for a lot of people to hear that, but Carl, the alien, really played with my mind when I saw him standing outside my window that night. And
yes, but you got to remember, you got to understand the reprimand he got for being seen. He wasn't supposed to be seen. Quite frankly, he wasn't supposed to be there.
Well, we will talk about that momentarily. We are going to step out for our final break of the night. Our Keith Andrews is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He comes in here every single first Friday of the month. We call it the ET Connection on Spaced Out Radio. We will be back after this break.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and And I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. We appreciate you tuning in, especially if you're on WQEE right here in Noonan, Georgia. We're glad to be live with you every single night as we take over the nights down in Georgia. Tomorrow night and Sunday, we have Spaced Out Weekend. James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin get things going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. You can follow along at spacedoutradio.com. We also want to welcome in everyone listening in on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. We're also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you along for the ride as well. We're also live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. Appreciate everyone in Sin City tuning in as well, my favorite city in the world. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Sesquiplicate. Sesquiplicate is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sits it every Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio in order to get us your questions and comments as well. You could also give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, Stitcher, and TalkStream Live. And our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. Our Keith Andrews goes the distance on the first Friday of every month, talking about extraterrestrials and contact. We call this show the ET Connection. Keith, welcome back.
No, thank you for having me there, Dave. And again, thanks to the new listeners that have popped in. You know, it's always interesting, and quite frankly, I'm really happy with the questions that are coming in off the chat rooms, because absolutely. that is one of the enjoyable parts from my standpoint.
Me too. And we love being very audience interactive, whether it's with Keith, whether it's with our other guests on the show. Just keep the questions coming. We love it when you do that. And we have a ton of chat rooms where you can get a hold of us, and we're going to be creating more as well in the near future. So keep on up, keep in touch, especially our new listeners, as you learn what we do on every night on this show. So, Keith, right before the break, we were talking about Carl the Alien, who appeared at my window on April 20th, 2015, about 15 minutes into a show with Harvey Kraft. And I'm going to bring you into this conversation now, because for the first time in almost 2 years, we had Harvey on the show earlier this week. And we dedicated the first hour of the show to that incident when that happened. We even replayed it on the show. And for those new listeners who are interested in what happened, I don't want to leave you in the dark. On April 20th, 2015, we were talking Buddha of all things. And I'm lucky enough where I can broadcast out of my home. So I built a studio in my old house that was a converted bedroom. And it was right by my front door. And we always had one of those houses that everybody was always welcome. Anytime. Didn't matter what time. Anybody was welcome. Unless we were sleeping. And out of the corner of my eye, as my studio and my computer that I broadcast from is right by my window, I saw something move out the window. And my initial reaction was, goodness, there's somebody at the door. They're going to knock at the door. I have 2 dogs. One's a little small yappy thing. And when she gets barking, there's no stopping her. She just loves to bark. And you know, when you're on live radio and you hear a dog barking in the background, it just doesn't make for good radio. So I asked Harvey a couple of questions, place my microphone on mute, and I turn and look out the window. And lo and behold, there is this big black set of eyes, surrounded by a giant gray head staring back at me. Distance-wise, this thing was about 7 to 8 feet away. I darn near fell off my chair, as I think anybody would when they have that close of an extraterrestrial experience when you're not expecting it. So, just a couple of nights ago, you can download the show and hear what happened with Harvey Kraft. Go to iTunes, tune in, wherever you want to hear it. And when that happened, it threw me for a loop. I was rattled the entire night. Who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be rattled? So after the show, I get a hold of Harvey, and he says, "What did you see?" So I told him what I saw. And then after that, the next person I called at about 1 o'clock in the morning was Keith. I remember messaging you, Keith, and I think it was during the show, and I said, "Are you going to be up late tonight? Because I just had an alien at the window." And you and I talked for about 2 hours until about 3 in the morning West Coast time about what had happened. What do you recall from that?
Well, I remember the text because you were really off kilter from what I'd heard already. You know, the way the show had started, when I tuned in, everything was going fine, and all of a sudden it took an entire shift, and I get this text basically going, "Are you going to be up?" And my response was, "Well, yeah, I don't work tomorrow, and therefore I'm probably going to be up until 2 or 3 in the morning anyway, right? Can I give you a call? Because I need to talk to you." It's like, "Yeah, okay. You know, absolutely. When the show's over, give me a buzz." And the first day, when you first told me about this, my immediate response, "Well, what did you think was going to happen? You think humans are the only ones listening to you?" And you just sat there for the longest time in absolute silence, and it's like, "Pardon?" And I said, "Well, I told you. You know, the off-worlders are listening in. They do keep an eye on the waves. You happen to have caught their attention because you're honest, you're open, you don't bother trying to add all this fluff and bother. Of course they're going to pay attention." You know, and I mean, we had quite the conversation because it took forever to get you to calm down to the point that, and it's not like you were panicky, but you were certainly not your normal, shall we say, controlled self. You were scattered all over the neighborhood, which thankfully doesn't happen very often. But I think the first half hour you were bouncing all over the place until we finally got you through that. And then it was sort of a case of, well, okay, what you're dealing with is a gray, and, you know, and like I told you then, you can bet he got reprimanded because he wasn't supposed to show himself. As a matter of fact, in all likelihood, he wasn't supposed to be there. But
so what brought him
let's
there?
face it, quite literally, it was curiosity. He wanted to see how it was that this primitive human could have so much information and seem so relaxed about it. He wasn't planning on having you, first of all, see him, and second of all, he certainly wasn't planning on ruining your composure. You know, it was literally a...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please.
It was literally a question of he took advantage of an opportunity to come and take a look at the human he was listening to.
How would he have got there?
Oh, there's no doubt he came down on a ship. Which is probably why your dogs went ballistic in the first place. Not because of him showing up at the door, but because they heard the ship land in the first place.
No, the dogs were quiet. The dogs were absolutely silent.
But, you know, the reality, the only way he would have, because he was gray, he had to come down in a, you know, on a ship. But understand, their technology enables them to be essentially invisible from any direction. And it's not a question of phasing out of existence. Humans have actually developed a similar technology, and they use it in Japan. You know, it's a optical redirector, if you will. Take a picture from one side of the ship and show it on the side you're facing. Right, so it looks as though in Japan they use it on the back of semis because the roads are too narrow. So they put a screen on the back of the semis in Japan. They put a camera on the front, and they broadcast on the back of the semi what the camera on the front sees, so that the cars, when they go to pass the semi, know if there's oncoming traffic. Same concept, but the UFOs are a whole lot more sophisticated.
Right. So was that a one-and-done type experience, or was that something where in the future it could happen again?
Oh, it absolutely could happen again. The problem is it was not a sanctioned occurrence. Okay, it wasn't that they said, go down and take a look. It was a case of he went and took a look. In all fairness, he was probably supposed to be out on some sort of a different run, and decided to take a detour while he had control of the ship. You know, kind of like I'm just going to step in and poke my nose in and see what's going on.
I'm just curious where he parked the damn thing, because I lived in a subdivision back then, and it was still early. It was only, oh goodness, 10:25 at night Pacific time?
In all likelihood, he was parked above your house. Understand, they hover, the Greys hover in a silent vehicle, and if you throw the camouflage on, you'll never see them. Of course, pity help the birds. But at that hour of the night, most of the time, the birds are sleeping.
True that.
And then it would just be a case of getting down from the ship. Right? You know, I mean, if you can hover, depending on how much clearance and not knowing your house location to speak of, if the ship was small enough, it could potentially hover between your house and the one next door.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't find any footprint, any marks on the ground, you know, as far as the ship went. But he would still be able to get there.
Well, I can tell you this. In the 2 to 3 seconds that I looked at him before I jumped back and darn near fell off my chair, and then shook my head and looked, he was gone, man. He was gone, and I would have been able to see him, because I remember standing up and looking out the window, and I couldn't see anything. And if it was a human, I would have seen some sort of movement happening, but this guy was gone. Light speed type gone.
Absolutely. And that part doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Him vanishing that quickly would just be plain normal.
Right. Well, Carl stood me up. I've invited him back on the show twice, and he stood me up twice. But I do have to say this. During that show with Harvey, when we were talking about it, it was late in hour number 1, I did see some sort of shadow move outside. Don't know if it was him or not, because I do know that there are ghosts running around my property. But it was interesting indeed. I couldn't get a clear look. It happened so quick. It just looked like a shadow move past my window. Who knows if that was him or not? Don't know. Maybe he did show up. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, and, I would be inclined to, it wouldn't be a surprise at all from my standpoint to find out he had. Sadly, I just don't have an answer to give you confirmed, yes, he did.
Right. Not a big deal. Let's move on here. Let's get to more questions here from our audience. This one comes from Gail. Where does an off-worlder like Don get currency to function in our world?
Well, that was actually the easy part. One of the people that was with him was a human liaison, and clearly, well, what I was told was quite literally, the human liaison gave the money to Carl, or to Don, for Don to deal with it. The problem was Don didn't even know what money was, much less how to deal with it. And the report I got was that he held out the entire amount of money, which was way over what was necessary for the door. And the girl, the woman that was handling the money, had to literally take only what was needed instead of, just taking what was being offered, because Don wanted her to take all of it. Don clearly, from all reports, had no clue what finances were.
That makes sense. Why would he? He doesn't need it.
Exactly.
Are we the only planet in our universe, or wherever we come from, whatever else is out there, that actually uses currency?
No. However, the races that are interstellar have evolved beyond physical currency for one practical reason. Getting gold off the planet or any other commodity in enough functionality to use would be extreme, which is why they all go to a digital form of currency when they're using currency at all. The only ones that use currency are the ones that are still primarily ground-based, that haven't gotten into full interstellar travel. Even the ones that have gotten into full full solar system travel, local travel, even those ones have evolved beyond the need of money, or beyond the need of physical money.
Moving on to a question from Claudia. She is asking, have the off-worlders taken one of your friends with you in a ship? To confirm.
Well, not exactly. What has happened, they have ended up knocking out friends that were there, when I was taken. Have I been taken with friends? No, but do let us understand that, and this is going to sound really sad, but frankly, I don't have a lot of friends that I travel around with that much. Makes it very difficult for anybody to be with me when I'm taken. And I know that sounds awfully, it sounds really bad when you think, well, I don't have friends to get taken. It's not a question of being unhappy about it. It's just a reality. When I travel, usually I travel on my own. But one of the worst travel trips that I had actually was I was down in Langley, which is a part of Vancouver, BC. And we lost, me and the lady I traveled with, we lost 2 hours that just vanished. Now, do I know what happened in those 2 hours? Now the answer is yes. At the time, I was not a happy camper. Because it was not one of those trips. It was not a case of being picked up for a wonderful communication line.
Let's get to Eric's question. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, finish up what you were going to say, and then I'll ask your next question.
Well, that particular trip, the other friend that was with me who never slept while we were traveling was right out cold. And she did actually see the marks on the back of my ear from where I had an implant. Mm-hmm. And in answer to that question, no, I don't have any proof of implants because, well, frankly, I have a bad habit of dissolving them. Mm-hmm. It annoys them, but what the heck.
Let's get to Eric's question here. Eric is asking, Keith, do you ever suggest people for the off-worlders to make contact with?
Once in a very long time, the answer is yes. But do understand, number one, that doesn't guarantee they'll be taken. I can tell you one person in particular I did suggest, and they did end up taking him and have subsequently taken him repeatedly, is Charles Stansberg, who is, actually I think it was now, the MUFON section director for Texas. And I did recommend that they pick him up. And they complied, picked him up, and have subsequently taken him a number of times. But it's not very often that I do, and it's certainly, my recommendation is certainly not their primary deciding factor.
Dennis, yeah. You're pausing a lot tonight.
I suspect they have some influence.
Okay, I got this. Dennis is asking, what will happen to Carl, the alien, for breaking the rules?
In all likelihood, he will simply end up having to go back through security protocol training and undoubtedly will be kept off world for a while until they're satisfied that he does know the rules. Because, much like every organization, every research facility that you're aware of, there are research protocols that they follow. But, in Carl's case, it certainly wouldn't be any sort of a flogging or anything, on that end.
Well, he might have enjoyed it.
Okay, we're just not going to go there.
No. Where's my mind? Oh, my goodness. All right, let's get to Teresa's question. Did Carl the alien have to look in the window to see, or did he go to the window to be seen?
In all fairness, my understanding is he went there to see. He wanted to see. If he'd wanted to just be seen, he'd come through the door. It's so much more effective. And, much as they're scientists, they aren't necessarily subtle.
Now,
but from that...
Go ahead.
Yeah, from that standpoint, I doubt very much that it was a question of he wanted to be seen so much as a side effect.
Now, Dawn is asking a question, and I'm not sure you know about this. A couple of weeks ago, we went into overtime on the show. And during overtime, my chair was kicked twice. I've never had that happen before. My immediate reaction was, usually my dog will sleep in the studio, and he will be literally right behind my chair, and sometimes when he stretches out, he knocks my chair. So immediately I thought, okay, is he in there? And I turn and look, there's no dog. There's no cat, nothing. So my chair was moved. So Dawn is asking, And she is asking, do you think it could have been Carl that kicked your chair? What do you think, Keith?
Well, it's technically possible, but quite frankly, given the configuration, given Carl's configuration, I wouldn't be betting on it. Now, that said, there are a number of ways that chair could have been kicked that have absolutely nothing to do with humankind. And the only reason I say it's possible it was Carl. Yeah, he could have done it. It's theoretically possible. I wouldn't bet on it knowing the culture. But, the issue of was it, it's more likely, in all fairness, if we want to tie it to Carl, it's more likely that he used a sonic impact driver, which is simply a weapon that it's a tool that is used for, if you will, tapping shelving, tapping equipment into place in a secured building, in a secured room, because it passes through solid objects, and the impact point manifests on the other side of the wall.
Let's get to Gail's question here. Gail is asking in the SOR Space Travelers Club, what do you think of the possibility maybe Carl was protecting Dave, his family, or even himself by not showing up? Perhaps you could get a request, or you could request a message to help you understand. Would that be possible?
Well, two factors. One, yes, it would be possible. Two, him trying to protect you by not showing up is also possible. It's from my understanding of it, it's unlikely because it's simply unlikely from the standpoint of you weren't in any danger. Okay. However, he may well have been told, like I mentioned earlier, Carl may well have been told that he wasn't allowed to go, he wasn't permitted to go back. Because that's, it would screw up the research, if you will.
So is there some sort of bond then between this and me?
Oh, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Simply put, you mentioned you're in 160 countries. Right. You mentioned that the station is being listened to in 160 countries, I think you said?
That's right.
That's only counting the ones on the surface of the Earth. Okay.
Do you think I could get royalties for that?
Yeah, good luck with that, eh? Tell you what, you might want to try for the royalties from the humans that are listening before trying to get the off-worlders, because you got to educate them on what the money's for in the first place.
Well, I'm trying to do that. They're not listening. They don't even show up anymore.
Now we're just getting depressed.
Absolutely. No, but there's a question that I have, and I'm going to use me as a personal example here. Okay, there are a lot of people like me, Keith, where they had a numerous amount of contact happen, and then all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. It's gone. Is it just on hiatus, or is it something that sometimes just ends? Because I have to tell you, I really don't want it to end. I'm kind of pissed off that it's been 2 years since I've seen an extraterrestrial. In the last year and a half, I've seen maybe 2 UFOs. And usually I was seeing them anytime I wanted. There comes a point where, you become addicted to this. You become addicted to the sighting. You become addicted to the experience. And those who've had an experience will fully comprehend what I'm trying to get at here, is that if it's a positive experience, obviously you want it again. You want to be able to have that happen again, Because maybe, just maybe, the next time you will take a different chance. Like when I had the UFO land in front of me, I was scared witless. And I would use another word if we weren't on terrestrial radio.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'm sure that your listeners can actually figure that one out.
Absolutely. But I was freaked out. Okay? Knowing now, hindsight being 20/20, I'd walk up to it to get a better look. The extraterrestrial in the forest that Samantha Mowat and I saw 5 days after that landing. They invited us over to say hello. I would go up to it now. And it's because I've been able to learn a lot more. And I guess in a way, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I feel a little ripped off here. That I had all these cool experiences happen, Keith. But now that I've learned, now that I've put this show together, now that I've brought on experts such as yourself and Samantha Mowat and others who we've been able to chat with about these topics night in and night out, now I'm kind of upset that my well has run dry, for lack of a better term. I feel ripped off. Should I?
Well, there's two factors you got to take into consideration. Number one, does it feel like it's, as you put it, over? The answer from my standpoint is no. However, taking into consideration how badly rattled you were the first time and understanding lifespans from their standpoint, 2 years for you is a long time. 2 years for them is pocket change. Okay, like it's just such a small amount of time. They don't see it as a long time, and they don't recognize the length of time being a problem. For them, what you're going through, like when you take a look at the graves, okay, and we'll just use them because they're where we're standing. If you take a look at the graves have an average lifespan of close to 500 years. Okay, so for the length of time, for 2 years to be a problem from their standpoint, you're actually looking at closer to 10 years before they're going to recognize it as being a delay. Okay, because it don't age the same way, so therefore the time doesn't matter as much. They're a lot more relaxed about how long.
I get that and I understand that. I really do. And I guess it's the anxiety of wanting to have that experience because you know what? Beforehand, and Keith, you'll understand this, other experiencers will understand this as well when I say it this way. I used to be able to feel them. I used to be able to sit in the morning and say, I got to go outside tonight. I'm going to see something tonight. Boom, go outside and there's a triangle over my house or something along those lines. And now, I haven't felt anything for ages. I just don't feel it. I feel like I'm not in tune anymore. Now, granted, it's probably because I don't have much downtime, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, considering that I'm always busy, I'm always working. I have a daytime career. I barely have time to be a parent before I got to come into this show and do the nighttime show. And when I look at everything, maybe that's the reason why. But before, I used to be able to feel it. And now, there's nothing. It feels like that part of me, personally, is dead. Even though my mind, heart, and soul still wants it and craves it.
Well, oddly enough, you basically hit the nail on the head. If you aren't taking time out for you, the senses that are required to be up and running don't have the recharge time to do it. Okay. And when you take into consideration that aspect and the fact that because you haven't figured out for yourself how to work as much as you do and relax at the same time, that's where the drawback is, because it causes a cross-current in energy. Doesn't mean the things aren't out there, doesn't mean you're not sensing them. What it means is you're not recognizing that you're sensing them. Because if you recall correctly, the sensing of their proximity was a very subtle energy that you picked up. Very subtle.
Right.
And when you're tired, and this just goes across the board, when you're tired, your subtle senses do not pick up as well. Or more to the point, you don't recognize them as well. Kind of like if you're getting tired, your eyes don't work properly.
I get that, and I understand exactly where you're going. One of the issues that I have is when I decided to move north from near Vancouver up into the wilderness of British Columbia, one of the things that was very strong at that time when that decision was made is, we're going to bring you up there, you're going to have more contact, this is all going to take off. And it's done the exact opposite. It's regressed to the point where, like I said, I just don't feel it anymore.
And that's where you made a mistake, or made a miscalculation is more to the point. It has taken off, but what they were referring to and what you were thinking they were referring to is where your problem is. Okay, it is all going to take off. Was quite literally referring to the show, to the fact that this career was going to move, was going to pick up. The senses weren't supposed to shut down, and they haven't. But because of your own demands on your own time, it has interrupted things, but it has not killed it by any stretch.
Let's change.
Okay, that's where you're running into the challenge.
Let's change topics here. Let's get to Robert's question, all the way from Australia. He is asking, Keith, are there jokers out there in the alien races? You know, the type that would make T-shirts saying, I got abducted, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
Well, quite honestly, yes. Those would be the Mobians, which, by the way, the Mobians are actually human. They originated on Earth and left. But they are still in our solar system. But most of the races do not have much of a sense of humor anyway, unless you take a real sick and twisted sense of humor on occasion, and we're just not going to go there. But the type of shirts, most of the time that is from standard, Terran-based humans that have capitalized on an intriguing concept. Mobians are, like I said, the Mobians and the Arcturons are both races that have at least a modicum of a sense of humor similar to what humans have.
Or unless you're Carl.
Yeah.
Damn Carl. Mm-hmm. I know. Dennis is asking, I thought Greys lived 900 years, or is it that the Pleiadians, platypuses, whatever? No, seriously.
Well, quite frankly, some Greys will. Some Greys will live that long. The Pleiadians, in all fairness, just plain don't die. Okay, it's just that simple. But some Greys will live that long, but the average isn't a 900-year run. 900-year run is more along the lines of a human that lives to 110. Is what you're looking at there. If that makes any sense.
Claudia wants to know, if you wanted to stay with the off-worlders, where they live, would you be able to? If so, how long would that be possible?
Well, in my case in particular, would I be able to visit them for a while? The answer is definitively yes. And once my kids have moved out, that may well be an option. But in my case in particular, could I stay with them for an extended period of time? I'm kind of an odd setup in that case. The answer is no, I really couldn't. But it wouldn't be because they wouldn't let me. It's because I couldn't do it. I'm quite literally physically tied to this planet. And therefore, I'm pretty much stuck with being on this planet. And that's just the way that goes. But I can certainly take a break. So for me, I could get away with a few months, but I certainly couldn't stay there.
Are your children connected?
Not in the same way, but yes. Both of them are definitively gifted.
Right. How do you feel about that?
Well, they're my kids.
No,
it's kind of entertaining. It's kind of entertaining living in a house with three fully functional electrokinetics, although it can be pricey. But they've gotten used to the fact that Dad operates on a different wavelength. My eldest, when I have troubles with the computer, he just looks at me and goes, "Dad, you're the problem. Go take a break."
Oh, for sure. I know what that's like. Let's get to another question here. This one from Gail. She says, Dave, if you are being protected, have you thought that perhaps what you are being protected from may not be alien? Maybe what is watching or monitoring you is not alien at all, and you need to be shielded from that. I would agree with that.
Absolutely.
I would totally agree with that. And, I can tell you an example. This past summer, I was standing in my living room, in my kitchen, literally just got home from my daytime job, and I'm standing over by Mrs. SOR, and all of a sudden, my face went blank, and I felt vertigo, and my legs buckled underneath me. There was no chest pains, didn't feel anything attacking me on a human sense. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever felt, because there was no pain whatsoever. And it almost felt, and I've had concussions from my hockey days, it almost felt like a symptom from a concussion. But I knew it wasn't. And I could tell you point blank, I remember feeling I just got attacked. And that was the first time I'd ever felt that. So maybe they are protecting. I don't know. We'll see.
And that, in all fairness, given the impact that your show is having and the following that you're starting to get, there is no doubt that off-worlders are not the only ones listening. I mean, clearly, if you're in 160 countries, frankly, you're being listened to by more than just casual listeners or the audience that's speaking. Okay, clearly, and this is not to play, Big Brother's watching type thing, because quite frankly they are. But are you being, is your show being monitored? The answer is definitively yes. But before you start panicking on that, so's everybody else's. This is one of the reasons. I mean, you think about it. I had the CIA show up on my doorstep wanting to know what I knew about the off-worlders, which was really kind of comical from my standpoint. So do they listen in to people when they're talking? Do they look at the posts that are being made? You can bet your bottom dollar. Off-worlders aren't the big problem on that note. And in the case of Carl, in all fairness, I don't get the feeling he was sanctioned at all. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty certain that the problem there was he took opportunity.
And that leads actually to Joe's question. We never know if it's Joe or his fantastic, luscious hair that is asking the question, because Joe has a great mane. He is asking, is it possible that Carl the alien was peeking at you on his own and was not part of the Gray's Master Peeking program?
Absolutely. Hence what I was mentioning earlier, that this was not a sanctioned go see what Dave's up to. It was a question of, Carl was out doing what he was supposed to be doing, and realized where he was as compared to where you were. And net result is turned around and went, hey, I gotta go see this.
What's really cool about Joe is the other night when we were having our show, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday night, Joe lives on the California-Nevada border. Nobody knows where he is. He's up in the mountains, and he's got the wild animals all around him, probably some Bigfoot in his yard as well. Anyhow, he starts taking photos. And he took, I think, about 5 or 6 great photos during the program of a black triangle flying over his house, heading north of all places, which would have been streamlined for where I am. But that was kind of cool. He got some great photos of a black triangle over top of his house.
Well, yeah, and I mean, let's face it, the black triangles are a fascinating setup in the first place. Go ahead.
No, I was just commenting.
Yeah. No, I mean, getting a shot like that is incredible. Because normally you don't get real clear shots by any stretch. Sort of a 1 in a million shot, if you will.
Dennis has a question for you. Dennis is asking, Keith, do you know if we need our magnetic field of Earth to live? Thereby, are we stuck here? Maybe that's why we cannot go back to the moon?
Well, 2 factors. Number 1, Dennis, no. The people of this planet do not require the magnetic field of Earth to live. As in, they are able to leave the planet. Granted, if the magnetic field ceases to exist, mankind will die. But that has to do with the planet. Secondly, frankly, it's not a question of we're not allowed to go back to the moon. Mankind is making regular trips to the moon. They're just not telling you. This issue that people have been perpetuating, that we haven't been back to the moon since 1970 or whatever it was, frankly, is bogus. They've been in and out of the moon. They're building a station over. I mean, right now, can we try one thought at a time? What do you think? There's a complete setup over there, and right now, mankind is in the process of doing a really neat thing and moving an asteroid into geosynchronous orbit around the moon in order to put a construction site on deck. And that's going to prove to be an interesting side effect. It'll take them a little while to do it, but no, people are able to get off of Earth. People are doing it quite regularly. It's just not exactly broadcast. And, of course, the question that goes hand in hand is, where's the proof? Well, unfortunately, the proof comes out in about 20 years. That's just the way my life has gone all along.
No, I can very much understand that. And just so you know, listeners, if you join the SOR USA page that we have, or the group on Facebook, if you join that, you can actually see Joe's photos of the black triangle posted in there. But in regards to what you were saying, Keith, in regards to are we stuck here, I fully agree with you. I believe there is a secret space program going on. I think there's no need to announce that we are going to the moon or need to go back to the moon when we are continually going there. And one of the things that I look at is everybody seems so excited that China was going to send a rover to the moon, which they did. And then they sent back some photos. But what amazed me about that was how quickly that story just died off. Like it wasn't even relevant. Like all of a sudden you couldn't find any information on it whatsoever, at least here in North America. Now, that's where I'm looking because obviously we had, an interest way back in the day. But that interest has waned off. So,
yeah.
The USA, and I guess the point that I'm making here is the United States is very well known. They don't show you the technology they have until it's well beyond its prime, much like the SR-71, the U-2, and so on and so forth. So the question is, what are they hiding?
Well, the funny thing is, it's not just the USA. Every country doesn't reveal the technology until anywhere from 30 to 50 years after they've developed it. The computers that are showing up on the sale on the markets today are already outdated by 6 months to a year. The ones that are being sold brand new, they're already old technology. So I mean, when you're looking at that, and I can understand where part of the problem is. You take a look at the question that Eric's got here regarding technology in the SOR chat room. Eric's asking, is HAARP causing all this crazy weather? And the answer is no. Is it amplifying some parts of it? Certainly. HAARP is a first-generation atmospheric generator. And the people using it are understandably trying different things to see how it works. The reality of what's causing the crazy weather is, quite frankly, mankind. And what I mean by that is the negative energy that is being propagated by the amount of garbage that's being spewed out over the news about who shot who killed who, and who ripped who off. And the amount of arguments and fights that are happening on your own neighborhoods, the amount of debauchery that is being caused, that is being brought to light in the churches, it's that negative energy that is causing the upset to the neural net that is having the side effect of triggering the atmospheric discordance. The funny part about it is people don't seem to, on the whole, want to look at that. You take a look at the movie Avatar. It showed it beautifully how the energy in the neural net is actually works. But that's what's causing the negative energy patterns. And when people come to realize that you want the weather to stabilize the neighborhoods, that's how to solve the problem. And I know that sounds way too simple. Be nice and everything's hunky-dory. No, but it certainly cuts down on the problems. But HAARP is not the problem itself. HAARP, and by the way, no, HAARP is not a off-world technology. It is something that mankind came up with on its own.
So what do you think then, and we only got about 2.5 minutes left with you tonight, Keith, what do you think then of this SpaceX program that wants to send 2 people around the moon in 2018 on a private mission?
Might just as well. They've already done it. The ironic part is that's kind of like, let's send somebody on a cruise ship to go across the Atlantic. They've done it so often, they're making a hype about it now, and you can bet your bottom dollar if they see something that if something is shown that they didn't really want to be shown, they'll quash the information in the name of national security or whatever excuse they can come up with. So the whole hype is, quite frankly, just that. It's to get people thinking. The thing I'd be concerned with is they're making a hype about sending them to the moon. I'd be watching Mars, because that's where the activity will be going on. They're going to make it's a show game. They say get you to look at what they're doing around the moon, and they ain't going to show you. You're not going to pay attention to what's going on around the rest of the place. You know, that ultimately is what you're looking at.
Fully agreed. Do you think they would cloak what's on the moon?
No, they'll just shut it down. They'll just shut the relay down. It's a little hard to cloak a city, especially when it's not just one group of people.
Right.
The operation on the moon is a multi-racial, not multinational system.
I very much understand. Mr. Keith, it is that time of the night. How can people get a hold of you and find out more information about what you do?
Well, the easiest way is, quite frankly, through Facebook. You can look me up, Ronald Keith Andrews. If you're in the chat room now, finding me is actually pretty easy. You can also track me down through my company, Inner Voice Enterprises, or track me down at innervoiceenterprises@yahoo.ca or rkeithandrews@yahoo.com. And of course, needless to say, I'm pretty certain if you get a hold of Dave, he'll be more than happy to pass on contact information.
Absolutely. Keith, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Spaced Out Radio side, I want to say thank you for tuning in. You are hearing Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, the former lead guitarist of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music hub, Spaced Out Radio. He brings us in and rocks us out every single episode of this show. Tomorrow night and Sunday, Elizabeth Anglin and James Tyson are back in the cabin as I wander off into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi for the weekend. Yes, James and Elizabeth will be by for Spaced Out Weekend, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. So make sure you tune that in, because we do this thing 7 nights a week. We want to thank everyone tuning in the chat rooms and our affiliates. WQEE 99 Rock the Key, down in Noonan, Georgia. 107.7 FM in New Orleans on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, and Revolution Radio. Thank you for being with us. I will talk to you all on Monday night, because that's when I will be back. I'm looking forward to it. Remote viewing, Robert Morningstar will be my guest on Monday. Thanks very much, Space Travelers. All of you have a great weekend. Good night.